Okay, this is the story of my leg. All right, I'm guessing it was a little over 45 years ago. I was doing an apprenticeship in a print shop in England, Eastbourne, England, Smith and Usman. And this particular day, I was cutting a piece of card or a piece of paper, I can't remember, and using a surgical blade, uh, and I happened to drop the blade. And as I dropped it, my reaction was to obviously catch it. And as I caught it, I plunged it into my leg. And at the time, I can always remember the guy I was working with. I looked over him. I said, "Tony." His name was Tony Potter. I said, "Tony, look at my leg. Look at that." And then I looked at his face, and I realised something else was amiss. And looked back down at my leg, and already the amount of blood that was just coming through my jeans was unreal. Um, Luckily, there was another guy there by the name of Steve Bernardo, who obviously knew first aid and was able to put a tourniquet on it and stop the bleeding. I'm not sure what he used, maybe a belt or a tie. I don't know. I'm presuming it was probably a belt. Um, well, that wasn't before. There was it looked like a major crime scene. There was blood all over the walls. I mean, it was squirting everywhere, absolutely everywhere. Um, Anyhow, they managed to stop the bleeding, and off I went to the hospital. And I don't know if it was like a few hours later or when it was, but anyway, I go to the hospital. They take a look at it, and I think they're thinking, well, what are you doing here? Because by then it obviously had stopped bleeding, it had been cleaned up, and all there was like a little puncture wound. So I don't remember everything about that situation. But anyhow, I leave the hospital, and I guess I went back to work a few days or a week later, I'm not sure, and carried on living my life. Yeah, it was always like I used to call it my bionic leg because it used to pump. You could actually see my leg moving, underneath my jeans. Um, Anyhow, so I moved to America, meet my wife, we get married, have a couple of kids, do your usual things that you do. And over time, over time, my wife kept saying, your leg's getting bigger, it's like it's starting to swell. Anyhow, I have to go in for some other surgery, major surgery, a carpal tunnel. Yeah, not major, but anyhow, I had to go for what would you call it? My pre test or whatever. Pre anyway, I go off to the doctor and they do an EKG and they noticed there was a couple of things that they weren't too sure about, so they sent me off to a cardiologist. And the cardiologist kind of looks at the chart and like, what are you doing here? You're getting you're only getting a carpal tunnel. Yeah, everything's fine. You'll be fine. I'm like, okay, great. And then at that moment, my wife suddenly asks him, well, could you take a look at his leg? She says, he's got one leg that's bigger than the other. And so with that, I whip off my pants and he takes a look at my leg and he sees there's a difference. And then he starts to feel for the pulse and he feels no pulse. So obviously he's concerned. He said, I think you need to go see a vascular surgeon. So with that, I go off to Syracuse, a few days later. I believe that the doctor's name was Dr. Semmel, and takes a look at it. They do all the scans, etc., and they decide that I'm going to have a stent. What had happened over the years, the blood vessels had all fused together, so I wasn't getting a proper flow of blood throughout my leg. So consequently, that's why he was having problems finding a pulse. And, down the road, that would obviously have caused problems. So I get my stent done. Everything was great. And a year later, like you do, come back in a year. So I come back in a year. They do their scan. Everything looks fine. So, then it's like, and you need to come back next year. I'm like, okay. With that, I think we moved down to Florida again for a couple of years, and then we were back up here for a couple of years, back to Florida, back. We were going backwards and forwards for it seemed like forever. I did actually see a vascular surgeon there in Florida because I thought he needed I needed to get it checked out, And that was a disaster. I went to see this guy, and he basically grabbed my leg. I don't think he believed me. He grabbed my leg and actually hurt me, and I'm like, I'm not going back there. Forget that. So the whole thing got put off for 2 or 3 more years. So in the end, this was like 18 months ago, I guess, when we moved back up to New York. I make an appointment with with my regular doctor, and they refer me to the vascular surgeon. He takes a look at it, does all the scans. I explain what had happened, and he's like, okay, well, he says, I think we can do something with that. So consequently, that's what happened on Tuesday. Um, don't ask me exactly what they did because I'm not sure, but yeah, the doctor was fantastic. I really would recommend him. Dr. Joseph Ayres was his name. He was excellent. Um, Anyway, so now I'm just sort of laid up for a little while. I've got like multiple staples in my leg from like my knee all the way to my groin. So that's the status right now. But just looking back, I'm thinking, when that happened all those years ago, I never really, I didn't think too much about it. It's like I just got on with my life afterwards. But when I think back and I realize how much blood I'd lost, and the fact that someone had to, um, luckily there was somebody there to actually take care of it and stop the bleeding. I mean, otherwise, I'm guessing I could have bled out. I don't know that. But just looking back, I wonder. And so with that, I just want to say thanks to Steve Bernardo. He's the guy I remember helping me, but I'm not sure if there was like somebody else there with him, and there might well have been. But anyhow, just looking back on it, and if you get to see this, Steve, thanks a lot. Obviously, thanks a lot. Okay, and that's it. Thanks. Bye.